Welcome everybody to this webinar. So I'm Virginia Villa, Director of Public Relations and Administration at EUPRERA. Just a few words to remind you that this webinar is part of a series called EUPRERAtalks, which is a collection of the results of the work done by our members throughout the year. And especially this webinar is linked to the network Women in PR led by Martina Topić. You can find out more information on our website. So thanks to Martina and to the panelists who joined and will present today this webinar titled Wellbeing in Public Relations and Communication Industries. So before leaving you, just a few words to remind you that at the end of the webinar, you will be redirected to a very, very brief questionnaire. So please fill it in because your feedback is very important. And I also want to remind you that on our website, EUPRERAtalks/webinars, you can find all the recordings of the previous webinars. And so now I'm leaving the floor to Martina and to the other panelists, and enjoy your meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia, for a lovely introduction. I'm Martina Topić. I'm a reader at Leeds Business School at Leeds Beckett University, and I lead the network on Women in PR. And as a start to this webinar, I will just briefly introduce the work of the network and some of the forthcoming publications and research. So I'll briefly share my screen. Okay. So basically, this webinar is part of the EUPRERA network, and we are doing some research into well-being in PR and communications industries. By this, we mean also corporate communications, marketing, advertising, and the media. So it's not just PR, and we are looking into comparing experiences. The network derives from the project Women in PR, which I led for 3 years, and we've done quite a lot of research in the past 3 years or 4 years. So we publish a systematic literature review on women in PR and lots of country reports. So Spain, Czech Republic, Greece, North America, Georgia, Croatia, and England. And these are all available on EUPRERA website via Leeds Beckett University open access website as well. There's been a few journal articles as well by Mirela Holy and Mirela Polic from Croatia, for example, and one of my articles has been published so far. And there are a few more publications coming out, but as you will know, it takes a while to get publications published. I've also edited a book on women in leadership in PR, which is supposed to be published later this year or early next year, where we are looking at leadership in public relations. And some of us are actually from EUPRERA project, and we provided chapters based on EUPRERA research we did. And in the introduction I wrote, I acknowledge that this is part of the EUPRERA network. And we have lots of interesting authors, some of them in webinars. So Professor Juan Meng from University of Georgia, she's also a member of the network and one of the chapter authors. And we also have Linda Alduri, Elizabeth Toth, Liz Bridge and Heather Yaxley, and lots of different authors from the network in the forthcoming book. So we've done quite a lot of things over the years, and we are very happy with our work. And having said this, if anybody wants to join the network and collaborate with us, this is always and always will be open, or at least for as long as I'm on the lead, anybody is welcome to come. So in terms of this network's research, this has been going on for a bit less than a year because it was a project before. So we are looking at well-being in comms. At the moment, we have case studies of UK, Romania, Sweden, Switzerland, and Jordan, but others are welcome to join. And we are also looking concurrently into PR education in the context of professionalism and a feminization of public relations. So there is a systematic literature review, which is currently ongoing, and my undergraduate students are actually co-authors. They're working on this as part of one module. And this should be released this year in August approximately, and then we will do some original research into PR education as well next year. But this webinar is only this well-being part, which is also ongoing research. The recruitment for a survey is still ongoing. But I will not talk a lot about the survey, which focuses on work-life balance and well-being, working hours, and all these issues, because as part of the panel, we have a colleague presenting this survey. So the structure of the webinar is that we will first hear a little bit about well-being generally from Ogbemudia, who is a well-being specialist and a HR scholar. Then my colleague Niki Kyriakidou will also speak about European survey on well-being, which was incorporated into this study in EUPRERA. So Niki is a very well experienced researcher into well-being. She works in European projects, and then she brought this HR research into PR research. So it's also an interdisciplinary project at the moment, and we are trying to link together HR and PR, which, as many of you will know, actually works quite well, because when you speak with industry people, PR women often tell me that their best friends are actually HR colleagues. So this is what I've done. I invited our HR colleagues at least bracket to join the project. And then after these two introductory parts, speaking about well-being generally from experts, then we have our country case studies, first with Juan Meng from the United States, then my survey in the UK, Anca for Romania, and Lara for Switzerland and Germany. So I'll hand over the floor at the moment to Joy Ogbemudia to tell us a little bit more about well-being in general.
Yeah, thank you very much, Martina. Even though I appear as a ghost, I hope you can hear me clearly and I don't sound like a ghost. Yeah, I'm Joy Ogbemudia. I'm from Leeds Beckett University. I am a senior lecturer. Like Martina rightly said, I specialize in immigration research, well-being, and work-life balance. My master's was on work-life balance, and my PhD was on the professional work experiences of Nigerian women in the UK, and that looked at their life experiences, their work-life balance at work, and discrimination and what to view in the workplace from a standpoint of intersectionality, looking at the different standpoints that comes together to affect women at work, especially immigrant women. My thesis has been written into a book, and the monograph will be out on the 29th of July, and that will be available on Google Scholar. So if you're interested in reading more about Nigerian women in the UK, that would be a go-to book. Now I will try to share my screen. Hopefully this works for us, as I just give a quick introduction into what we're doing today. All right, I suppose you can see my screen. Hooray, that worked. Yeah, so I've done a brief introduction. So what I am doing today is pretty much saying a bit about what we mean by work-life balance, and my colleagues will go on to do justice to the topic and giving live case studies about that. So work-life well-being, very simply put, is how we are doing as individuals, as community, and as a nation, and how sustainable that is for the future. And that definition is given by ONS and also by the Department for Education. So pretty much how we're doing individually, as a community, and as a nation. You agree with me that it's become a key word in the HR world, in the public sector, private sector, all over the world. We are talking well-being because there's a huge problem with that at the minute. And just to buttress that from my research and from recent research, you would see that I don't want to go into all this, but it's quite self-explanatory in terms of how satisfied people are with life generally. It has taken a plunge. You can see that the extent to which people enjoy their work, how happy they feel today compared to yesterday, and how anxious people are. These graphs will give you a very quick synopsis into how people are doing in terms of well-being in today's world. And like I said, others are going to go into this in detail. And from the point of view of my research on work-life balance, it is clear that work-life balance does impact well-being. And again, I'm not going to talk about that. I'll leave that to my colleagues to discuss that. I'm just laying down the the flow of what we're going, the flavor of what we're going to be looking at today. But when I interviewed women, I could tell that when it comes to work-life balance, women are disproportionately affected in terms of well-being. The stories the women were telling was quite emotional compared to what men we are talking about in terms of work-life balance and its impact on well-being. And just to drive that home, from my research and from CIPD recent research, you would see this beautiful statistics on what the impact of work-life balance is on well-being. Without going into details with all this, I'll just stress on the second to the last point there, which says 2 in 3 workers, that's 66%, say they have experienced a work-related health condition in the last 12 months, with anxiety and sleep problems being 2 of the most common issues reported. I can speak for myself that this is my experience as well, and suffering sleeplessness, anxiety, and what have you, and that you can see how high the number is in terms of the impact this has in recent times in the workplace. So this is from HR perspective, and we're going to be looking at perspectives from different countries as my colleagues bring on their own presentations. So that's it from me, presenting the foundation for my colleagues to take over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joy, very much for this interesting introduction. And I'd like to invite our colleague, Niki Kyriakidou, who is also an expert on HR and well-being, to tell us more about this European survey that she brought to this network. Niki, you are muted, sorry.
Yeah. Hello? Yeah? Yeah, good. A very warm welcome for me, and thank you for the invitation to join the network. It's a pleasure to work with PR professionals because we can share an expertise, and also it's a new ground for me because I mean the research we're doing on well-being, okay, is not new, okay, but the research gap that exists, okay, especially in this field about PR professionals and communication professionals, is something that is requires urgent attention, especially with the pandemic, Brexit, and all the global environmental challenges we all experience now. Okay, it has affected our well-being in numerous ways. Let me introduce a little bit about who I am. I mean, originally I'm from Greece. Okay, my first degree it was political science, okay, and also in a law school of Athens. Okay, so I started through the studies. Okay, I was fascinated by employment law, and especially when it comes to discrimination, diversity, inclusion. Okay, and this was my driver. I mean, to focus on people management. Okay, and therefore my master's was in human resource management and occupational psychology. Okay, and I was undertaking a PhD, okay, or career advancement, okay, and graduate employment. And my sample consisting of women, okay, working in health professions, but also women working in professions that didn't have direct occupational orientation. And through their career stories, I have experienced a lot of problems. Okay, how society, how the perceptions from the society, family influences, organizational cultures affected dramatically, not only the work status, but also they affected the employment opportunities, okay, compared to men. Okay, and especially from the country I'm coming from, okay, the social perceptions, okay, about the role of the women in society is still quite intense. Okay, and therefore then affected the work-life balance. They affected, how they have been perceived as a professionals, and also affecting dramatically networks and affecting dramatically the opportunities that will be open to them. So what I'm trying to present today is how we initiated this kind of research, okay, and the questionnaire that we used in order, in a different European countries, okay, in order, to assess well-being and work-life balance and engagement of the women. Let me share my presentation with you. Okay, it's good, it's working. This is the good thing with the pandemic. Now we feel more confident and comfortable of using technology, something that didn't really happen 3 years ago. So reflecting of what my colleague Joy said, okay, well-being is understood how people feel and how they function, okay, both on the personal and societal level. We can't really differentiate, this, because as a human beings, okay, we interacted in every day with others, but also this kind of interaction affecting our life in a numerous ways. So by looking at the wheel of well-being, okay, we have been affected, okay, our status, our health status, affect our mind, affect our spirit, affected the relationship we have with others, affected our professional, personal stance, okay, our belongingness, okay, where we are and where we like to be, but also affected environmentally as well, okay, about care, about the planet, about all the influences that we can accept it health-wise and mentally wise as well. And just to be very clear, a lot of people, they mix the terms. Well-being is not the same as happiness. Happiness refers of how people feeling moment to moment. It doesn't always tell us about how we can evaluate our life as a whole. This is a very important aspect because we can't really measure happiness, but we can measure well-being. Okay, this is the big differences. Okay, and all the tools, okay, that have been used in order to measure well-being, they can focus on one aspect of well-being. Could be mental well-being, could be physical well-being, or could be social well-being, or could be a combination. Why well-being is important? It's important because it can link to occupational performance, and this is totally related with work-life balance and also with employee engagement, but also it can link to illness, about the health status. Okay, so when we do research on well-being, okay, especially in a workplace, we don't really focus on people that they have declared some, illness status. They're mentally ill. We refer to people that will be healthy, okay, but their status could be emotional status or physical status can be affected by situation or challenges they haven't experienced. Okay, and that's why, okay, it is important that all the tools, okay, needs to be applied to a healthy population. Because if it has declared some medical illness or impairments, okay, this is for occupational health, okay, experts to deal with and report it. Okay, so that's why I said before, that's why we said well-being is linked to everybody and everything. So the theoretical framework that we use in order, to frame our research is based on the Canadian model of occupational performance. Okay, the Canadian model of occupational performance, he has 3 pillars. He's looking at the person, he's looking at the occupation, and also he's looking at the overall environment that someone experienced. Okay, so when it comes to the occupation, okay, is like a circle, okay, that affected, a triangle. So a triangle is based on how we're doing things, our physical stance, how we feel things, okay, it's about effectiveness and about our cognitive self, the cognitive behavior, okay, how we're thinking, how we perceive the world around us. And this is the components that affect the person. And if you see the 3 components could be the cognitive one, the affective one, and the physical one, and we put spiritual in the middle, because spiritual is nothing to do with the religions only. is to do with how people, okay, are doing things and experience things, okay, and is the way that we perceive the reality, and is our stance that we have in the world, okay. So this is the first model that we use. We can link to the well-being. So when it comes to illness, the step to illness, how we can occupational therapists, okay, measure well-being. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, yes. When it comes to step to illness, okay, it will be like, I mean, the mental illness. The mental illness caused by burnout. Okay, and this is quite important, because the problem that we have, especially for the last 2 years, is working from home. Okay, of course, it has some positive effect, because we can, some people said it's better because provide flexibility. Some people argue that they can give them better work-life balance. But okay, if we try to position to working parents, for example, if try to position in gender, okay, then probably women experience more mental issues compared to men, because they have multiple roles. And the multiple roles, in order to cope, okay, means that they need to sacrifice a lot about themselves, about their physical health, okay, mental health, because always they feel very occupied, busy to manage expectations from different parties as well. Okay, and really depends on the culture they're coming from. This causes them a lot of stress and anxiety, but also cause them work-related stress. Okay, and the work-related stress, I mean, or affect negatively our well-being. So when we try to define stress for the purpose of the study, the work-related stress is the adverse reactions that we experience about having excessive pressure or other types of demand placed at work. And I think all the examples, all the results from the country case studies that we're going to present, okay, they can highlight this, how people challenge work-life balance, okay, how this affected their stress level, okay, the work-life stress, but also there will be the life stress and the work stress, okay. So stress occurs when individuals perceive, okay, things, perceive when it comes to the expectations that others have from us, okay, like mothers, like, for example, partners, like professionals, like friends, okay, things that we're unable to cope, okay, if we're a multitask, okay, and this is coming this, okay, occur, especially for the last 3 about work. Some of you, okay, you have stress of having a job in a couple of months, or finding a customers that generate, I mean, an income that you'll be able, I mean, to survive, okay, pay the bills. It's also all of these have negative outcomes, okay, in our health and therefore in well-being. So I'm not going to focus, I mean, a lot of things, I mean, on that, okay. This is the theoretical framework that we use in order, I mean, to frame all the questions in the survey. Okay, we take into considerations life events, we take considerations resources that will be available, we take considerations, you know, performance appraisals, okay, how the managers, I mean, feel that we cope, I mean, effectively, and we try to manage, we try to have, I mean, a clear output and contribution to the organizations. What are the networks that we have in place? So how much support we get in and from whom? Could be professional networks or social networks. And this is about coping mechanism and how they can affect it psychologically and physiologically. And this is the thermometer. This is the tool that we use. It was based on the Wellbeing thermometer. It's a collaboration that we have in the European level, okay, by Professor Adamo, okay, which is actually, he has an OB from the Queen about the well-being contribution that he has done in the UK, and collaborated with him in various research we're doing together. And the rest of the team that they're working as a psychiatrist, as a physiatrist, okay, and all of them, they're members of the Royal Society of Physicians in the UK. We join powers, okay, they need me as an HR expert, okay, just to bring the HR element, and then we produce the well-being thermometer that we can test it empirically in this research. Okay, it was based on the pillars I described before. Okay, we have pillars how to assess health. Okay, and this is the questions that we use, I mean, for health, about physical health, about what we eat, what we drink. Okay, for example, in the UK, there is a huge research, 30% of the drinking intake, okay, has been increased during the pandemic. Okay, people that drink more alcohol in order to cope with the stress. Okay, they exercise less because they're working from home, then eat too much. Okay, so they have a lot of eating disorders. It's about affecting our thoughts, okay, how we can make decisions, how we're satisfied with our life, okay, how we feel content with what we have and what we experience in life. Okay, there's about control. There's a huge research about how things that we're controlling, things we can influence, and things that we can really control in our life. Okay, and also it's about having a fulfillment, okay, self status and self-actualization. It is an issue, okay, when it comes to motivation, when it comes to the engagement, okay, so the satisfaction we get in and how this can affect our engagement is about emotions. Okay, we feel satisfied with things they're doing. We feel, I mean, annoyed with things that happen at work, happen at home. We feel proud about achievements. We feel frustrated about ourselves and others when we feel that undermine the things we're doing. And also it's about spirituals, the feel of belongingness, the feel of sense of purpose, okay, the sense of, appreciations or harm in my life. Okay, people that the suicide, okay, rate has been significantly increased. Okay, we have people that have more depressions now because they feel that the helpers, they feel useless. Okay, all these kind of feelings, okay, that we can to probably discuss, okay, by going through the individual case studies. And there's some questions that we integrated in the questionnaire that we use that come in from the work engagement and work-life balance. But this is the research how we've been involving with colleagues from America and Singapore. Okay, and we produced 430 questionnaires. Okay, we're looking at the work-life balance and we're looking at the work engagement, especially for working parents. Okay, and fascinatingly, Singapore score higher than the UK when it comes to the work engagement, and also when it comes to support they're getting at the workplace. Okay, when it comes especially with parents, working parents that have children or their carers with people with disability. Something that, I mean, especially in the European and in Eastern European countries, okay, were very, very low in approaching and dealing with kind of issues. So it's a neglected, workforce, especially working parents that have children with disabilities. Unfortunately, the societies are not prepared to invest, okay, and providing support. And this is a huge issue, especially for mothers, okay, that their kids are totally depending on them. And also it's about societal issue that the society is expecting for them to prioritize over their work and over their careers as well. I'm stopping now. Okay, this is the background of the research that we're doing and give you an overview. So I pass into my other colleagues that now they're going to give you some empirical findings on the research that they have conducted in their countries. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Niki. If you can just stop sharing your screen, please. And I'd like to invite Juan Meng from University of Georgia in the US to present preliminary results for the United States, please.
Sure. Are you able to see the full screen? Okay, great. Glad to be here, everyone. My name is Juan Meng, and I'm an associate professor in the Department of Advertising Population in the University of Georgia in Athens, Georgia, United States. So glad to be part of the well-being in population and communication industry research as part of the active and ongoing research project that organized by Martina, Topić. So I'm going to go over the slides quickly with you. So some background. Well, it's not showing full screen on my screen, so it looks weird. I hope you get to see this full screen on your end. So I want to talk about the mental health issue, which absolutely is on the rise in our communication profession. Since we used to be very proud to feature that we are 24 hours, 7 days availability, and we are always being on to take any client's requests, to take any kind of projects. And then now, since the pandemic, we need to step back to really question, is this the right thing to do in terms of its potential effects on the mental health and also well-being. And according to the industry report, the number of professionals who have experienced exhaustion and burnout has spiked over the 2 years. So some quick numbers. In 2022, there's 37% reported feel low, depressed, anxious, but the number increased in 2021 to 45%. And I'm sure there are still hidden numbers not reported through the industry report. And the well-being programs in the workplace have been placed at a very critical role over the past 2 years to take care of their whole employees, focusing on multiple dimensions, from the physical health to mental health to social belonging, even the financial well-being, and also feeling safe at the workplace, because there's ongoing social justice and also different other social issues going on, especially in the United States. So the employee well-being and the great resignation in the United States, and I'm sure if you read the industry news, you've heard that term that we have used a lot recently, especially since last year, the great resignation in the United States compared to the Great Depression many years ago. Okay, so the great resignation in the US labor market is happening at all levels. So the research shows that we are experiencing the talent shortage at a 10-year high. People are kind of no longer willing to tolerate jobs that leaves them unhappy or make them constantly feel stressful and fatigued, and even including those high-level executives. So based on the most recent industry research conducted by Deloitte, 70% of the high-level executives are actually seriously considering quitting their jobs, largely due to they need more help to cope with their emotional well-being. And 57% of them said they were fed up enough to quit. And those are reports from the high-level executive. And 76% said the pandemic having a really negative impact on their overall health, and more so, over 80% said improving their mental health was more important than their career. So, and I just want to quickly show you that based on also the Deloitte analytics, okay. So one interesting finding is the lack of well-being does not discriminate by rank. So it's happening at all levels, from the very senior level CEOs, the C-suite people, to senior manager, general manager, team leader, general employees, and junior level employees. They all feel different level of poor mental health issue, from the feeling exhausted, stressed, overwhelmed by the amount of work and the long working hours, and feel lonely at the job, and also feel depressed for most time. And when it comes to improvement well-being, actually the industry report there's the top two hurdles. Number one is a heavy workload, that I have a stressful job and the amount of work I need to manage on a daily basis is high. Or they also feel that they do not have enough time because of the long working hours. And just another quick review of one of the most recent projects that I've conducted and which has published in the book, PR Women with Influence last year. And we kind of surveyed the 500, the women working in the public relations and communication profession in the United States, and asked them to evaluate their work-life conflicts. And we kind of use the term, the mental load, which is a popular term kind of used to describe the combined cognitive and also the emotional struggling that a woman in public relations have been experienced in terms of taking care of work and also taking care of their domestic responsibilities. And more than half, majority feel there's a huge conflict between the work and life balance. They have to make different changes and plans in order to finish their work-related duties. And they also need to make different plans because they couldn't finish work. So they have to push their schedule and responsibilities at home as well. And related to this project, that part of the well-being in the EUPRERA project, now we have launched an online survey. And the survey is trying to collect responses from communication professionals in the United States, both men and women, and also professionals at different ranks from the top level to the junior level, and also try to include a more diverse respondents with different ethnic groups in the United States. So I just want to share with you some preliminary results based on the data collection running so far. So it looks like it is positive that people pay a lot of attention to mental well-being in today's communication profession in the United States. They pay attention to information programs, the initiatives related to mental well-being. They also agreed that mental well-being is a heavily discussed topic in their organization. And they admitted that mental well-being actually affects their daily work quality and also productivity. So two dimensions, the quantity and also the quality of their work in their communication department and also in their communication agency. Then we asked them, have you participated in any mental well-being program offered by your organization in the past year? We have about, so far based on data collected, we have about 60% answered yes, they did participate, but we still have 40% answered no, they did not. So it's very interesting to see, even if the initiative support well-being programs are available, people still choose not to participate. Then I'm curious about the reasons. Okay, why so? What are the top 3 reasons you choose not to take time off? We have a bunch of different reasons listed based on the industry report. And actually, based on the data collected so far, the number 1 reason is people don't think it is a valid reason to take time off, which is kind of consistent with other reports like Forbes did, the Deloitte did. People are reluctant to ask for time off because they don't think this is a valid reason. And the sort of relate to the first one, top reason is they want to keep it to themselves. They still feel this is a personal thing, this even though it may cause by the work, by the workload, by the long working hours, by the organizational culture, but that kind of overworking organizational culture kind of push them to keep the issue about mental well-being to themselves. And we do have some respondents believe, well, they don't think take time off would help them to cope with the mental well-being. So I just want to pause here because we have other panelists lined up for the discussion. I just want to say, stay tuned. It is an active project, and the more in-depth results and analysis will be shared and available later, hopefully by the end of summer and early fall. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. So now back to you, Martina.
Thank you very much for an interesting presentation. The next presenter is actually myself with some UK data. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to be very brief, actually, because it's also ongoing research. And I've, just a second, share screen. It's also ongoing research and the sample is currently very low. Can you just confirm that you see my slides, please? Yeah, okay. Thank you. So the current sample for the survey is just 44 participants, and I'm only presenting data that identifies trends that currently derive from the data. I'm not aware of any well-being studies in PR and comms conducted with the UK as a case study. But when I was interviewing women who work in advertising, journalism, and PR over the last 3 or 4 years as part of various projects, including EUPRERA, well-being issues did arise from the data. You can see that they do talk about issues of stress, work-related issues, insufficient amount of time for themselves. But interestingly, it was only women in journalism who recognized that they work too much and that this is causing stress. PR, advertising, not so much. And interestingly, this then shows up in this survey with results so far. So from the 44 respondents so far, mainly we have women and very small number of men and non-binary individuals. Mainly highly educated with a master's degree, 47.7% actually, and then 40.9% BA degree. So highly educated professionals, mainly women. Also in terms of race, mainly white. And in terms of industry, mainly from PR and corporate comms who responded so far. We do have some from marketing and advertising and journalism, but we are working towards increasing this sample to see differences between industries. Also, these are very senior participants with mainly 20+ work experience, and they work 40+ hours per week. So they do work quite a lot, mainly full-time employees, over 60%, and mainly from private sector in the UK, 51%, but also quite a good response rate from the public sector, which I'm also trying to increase currently. So what they're reporting is high employee engagement, focusing hard on their work, paying attention, and they feel highly concentrated on their work. And they also say that they share similar values as their colleagues, so they do feel satisfied in their organizations in that sense. But then there are differences, and what's coming out as a pattern from this currently low sample is that there are differences between work attitudes and career goals between employees, when some people are simply more driven than the others, and then those who are not driven as much as others feel like as if they're being victimized in a way for not feeling that driven and wanting to spend more time on themselves. But there are also positive feelings towards work and feelings of energy and enthusiasm, where this seems to be lower than, for example, when you ask them about whether they're engaged with their organizations, with their work, then response rate is very high, and they score on the scale from 1 to 5, mainly as 4 and 5. So highly engaged, highly focused on work, paying attention, being highly concentrated. But then when you ask them about feelings towards work, then this starts going down. When you ask them about feelings of energy, enthusiasm about work, it starts going down again. So there is some sort of dissatisfaction. It's not massive at the moment in this sample, but it's immediately visible once you look into data. In terms of work-life balance that we asked, they say that they visit their friends, have free time, and do not neglect their families because of their work, and also that they have control over their free time, where they work, how much they work, how they organize work time. But then in another question, they also scored very highly on saying that they deal with work in the free time, so that they work during the free time. So there is a little bit of disagreement and almost a sense that people don't always recognize. Also, when asking about work-life conflict, what participants said is that, sorry, I don't know what happened here, that work keeps them away from families more than they would like. They also feel kept away from leisure activities and having less free time. And they also report that they feel emotionally drained, and sometimes emotionally drained and too frazzled to do much after work. So there is some sort of sense. From one point they say, no, I have control over my free time. I have control over what I do, how I do it. I do have the time, but then you ask them other questions and you keep going deeper, and then all of this comes out that actually they don't have enough time and they feel emotionally drained and kept away from having a free time, which is obviously problematic. And these are just some stats for about well-being and satisfaction with work. So when it comes to finding real enjoyment in job, then there is a little bit of a division between participants. So, okay, 16 of them said scored 4, which is high, and then 12 scored 5. So basically participants do like their jobs, they do them well, but sometimes they feel that they're working too much. But they again express enthusiasm about their work. But then when it comes to my life being close to my ideal, then it starts slightly going down. Like I said, the sample is still too small, so we will see how this plays out. But as soon as you ask them about ideal and how they see their life, the sample splits a little bit. The same with I'm satisfied with my life, also, and all these well-being relating issues. We were also asking in a UK survey, because of another project on which we work, about networking as part of a job, and whether networking could be seen as a well-being issue. Because in the UK, PR networking and communications networking in most industries other than journalism is an expectation of a job. I know this from previous projects when I was interviewing this woman. They are expected to network after work. So we were looking whether networking would be reported in a larger survey as part of a job. And then the majority of participants, as you can see here, say that it is a part of their job because they scored 4 and 5, and the majority is there. Now, we didn't still recruit enough from journalism to maybe push this down, but we will see. But then when it comes to well-being, whether well-being networking positively affects well-being, then there is a mix of results, and neither here, neither there, 15 participants, and then 10 saying just 2, that it's not actually positively affecting their well-being to work after working hours. So we are looking into this. We also looked at the moment, from this preliminary data, we have some indication of gender differences. So we've been asking basically whether they've been left out of opportunities for professional advancement because of gender, which is something that did come out strongly from my previous projects. And then the majority says no and scores very low in this way. But then when you ask them, I have perceived gender-specific biases or obstacles to my career success or satisfaction by gender in my work environment, then it changes again because they did perceive actually gender-specific biases. So in the same way, when you ask them whether they increased opportunities to people based on their gender, they mainly say no. So what these findings at the moment, based on this small sample in the UK, indicate is that the results are on par with other research on women. This was not a woman study. We were looking into well-being generally in comms, but the participation so far has been mainly from women. And then the results are on par with other research on women. So in previous research, not just the one I've done, but also the others, is that you ask women directly whether they face some discrimination at work or from colleagues or bosses or anything, and they say no. But then when you ask very specific questions, then the discrimination comes out. So there isn't really enough recognition on what constitutes discrimination or, in this case, a bad working environment. So in this case, they are saying for well-being, they have no issues. You know, they can work whenever they want. They can control their free time. They have enough free time. But then you ask them more details, and then you see that there is an issue. And equally, there is no gender discrimination when you ask them again. But then you ask them, have you perceived bias? Yes. So again, the preliminary conclusion could be going in line with other UK studies that consciousness raising is needed amongst women in the UK because they don't always recognize discrimination in the work environment. So that's all for me from this preliminary study, and the research is ongoing. And like in the US, we hope to have findings in August or September. And our next speaker is Anca Anton for Romania. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Martina. All right, so just like Dren and Martina, I'm gonna present some preliminary results. My research is done in Romania. I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Bucharest, and we've managed to get up to nearly 50 answers until now, but this is again ongoing. I'm very happy that in this survey we managed to introduce a dimension of regarding freelancers, which is something that I've been studying in the last couple of years. So not just organizational employees, but also this freelancing dimension. So as of now, we have about 2/3 women and 1/3 men, which is a little bit more than I expected, to be honest, in terms of results. I was listening to Dren saying that you know, they are looking for diversity. I'm sure I will not get diversity. Romanians are very much homogenous, so it will be 100 Romanian, 100% white. It will just be that. Up until now, about half of the respondents have no dependents or children. Half of them have. So this will be an interesting dimension. They are most of them educated with higher education. There is a very interesting span of experience and also professional experience, and also, for example, position within the organization. A little bit more from the management or managerial half, but we do have this nice distribution, primarily from the private sector, but we do have some public sector representation and a little bit of a non-profit. So going into the preliminary findings, I'm just gonna point out a few things. So in terms of employer engagement, what I saw is that management is usually open to giving advice, to listening, but not so much to acting. So there is this very clear discrepancy between an openness to listen and an openness to act, or unwillingness to listen and a lack of willingness to act, which is a little bit troubling. In terms of work culture and relationships, overall, colleagues are mostly are seen as accommodating of family issues, personal issues. So this is actually a constant and maybe a source of well-being, a little bit of balance. In terms of employee engagement, I treated this by comparison with freelancers. Overall, organizational employees and freelancers evaluate positively their relationship with their own individual work. However, when they are looking at values and work goals, organizational employees feel that they have they're on the same page with their colleagues, but they feel that they share to a lesser degree the same work attitudes, which is the opposite for freelancers. Sorry. So this might come from the fact that freelancers are actually their own employers, so they need to have a more positive work. Opposite for freelancers, they do feel you know, charged with energy, and they do feel enthusiastic about their work. Moving forward, in terms of work-life balance, this I think echoes what Martina was presenting a little bit earlier regarding the UK. So work is to some extent universal, and this overflow of work duties into personal time. Maybe it will be something that Sarah will also tell us about. I'm actually very curious about that. One thing that I've seen is this high, I would call it increased, based on the pandemic, a high level of control over the time that they start working, they stop working, where they are working, working from home. So this is an indicator of flexibility. And one interesting thing, I'm actually curious to see how it will pan out when we have more results, more answers, is that time, although it's not enough, is allocated, or they are trying to allocate it to family and friends. And those that present themselves as more successful in doing that are the respondents with dependents or children. So those that don't have dependents or children present themselves as not as successful in allocating time to let's say, friends or family. And then in terms of work-life conflict, again, it echoes what Martina was saying. Work is emotionally draining, it is stressing, and whatever people are doing effectively at work is proving to be ineffective or even counterproductive when it comes to non-work activities or problems. Regarding networking, even if overall there is job satisfaction and enthusiasm and enjoyment, and networking is an important part of their work, people are divided. Some really like it and feel that it contributes to their well-being. Others see it as a source of stress and they evaluate it in a negative way. So this is pretty much divided across the middle. And in terms of gender discrimination and sexual harassment, there is some perception of gender discrimination, but what comes even more present is sexual harassment, more than gender discrimination. And in terms of freelancers, as I said, this echoes some of the research that I've been doing. You have here some central reasons for becoming a freelancer. COVID is not seen as one of the main reasons. I would be very curious to see how things are in other countries. And another aspect is that professional associations and former colleagues are not seen as support sources. Maybe I would understand former colleagues, but professional associations, I think this is a problematic aspect for the profession and for the industry. There is a division over the relevance of professional communities, both online and offline. And as I said, there is a higher level of enthusiasm and energy regarding one's work than their organizational counterparts. So overall, in a nutshell, these are the things that I can say as preliminary findings.
Thank you very much for this interesting presentation. So last but not the least, Sarah Marschlich from Zurich in Switzerland.
Yes, thank you. I hope you all can hear me. I know time is a bit an issue today, so I will try to keep it short. My name is Lara Marschlich, and I'm working as a senior research and teaching associate at the Department of Communication and Media Research at the University of Zurich. And in the next couple of minutes, I want to talk about my preliminary results from Germany and Switzerland. So just very quickly, some notes on my sample. So far, 62 women and men participated in the survey, while most of them are women. And on average, the participants are around 40 years old, and most of them earned a bachelor's or master's degree and are employed full time. Yeah, I think the results are much more interesting. So now I want to briefly shed light on how the participants actually perceive the employer's engagement and how they are engaged in their workplace themselves. Yeah, just a quick note on my slides, on the graphs in my slides, the percentages that you can see on the left refer to answers like never or strongly disagree, and on the right to like very often, always, or strongly agree. And I tried to make it visually appealing, and I marked everything in red or light red if the answers are, let's say, varying, and more positive answers are marked in light green or green. And since some of the items are reverse items, it happens that some results are marked green on the left, but refer to answers like never or strongly disagree. So what you can see here concerning the employer engagement, my preliminary results indicate that mostly the supervisors, the line managers are understanding towards their employees and accommodative when it comes to person's private issues, private duties, such as childcare, which is a quite positive result. And when we look at the employee engagement, so how engaged are they on a social, effective, and intellectual level, my results show that the majority of the respondents is engaged on an effective and an intellectual level. So they feel positive about their work and they focus hard on their work. And in comparison, on a social level, or in contrast, on a social level, employees are much less engaged. So around the half of the respondents disagreed or neither disagree or agreed that they share actually the same work attitudes or goals as their colleagues. Then when it comes to work-life balance, my findings imply that most employees seem to have the opportunity to work from home or to decide when to start and end their work, which would contribute to their work-life balance. At the same time, however, more than 1/3 of the professionals work in their free time, which is similar to what we heard already, and it does not have, or they do not have enough time to meet their friends or family, which would harm their work-life balance. And in line with these results, my results on the work-life conflict items are actually in line with what we can find regarding the work-life balance results. So almost 1/3 of the respondents feels too frazzled, too tired after work to participate in free time activities, and around 30% of the respondents work so many hours a day that they don't have the time to do something in their free time, which is quite sad. When it comes to the job satisfaction and well-being, it's quite interesting because although work-life conflict is sometimes an issue, so that they do not have, as I said, enough time for free time activities, still a large number of the respondents feel satisfied with their job overall and they enjoy their job, which might be related to the overall well-being, which you can see on the right. So more than 70% of the respondents moderately or strongly agreed that they are actually satisfied with their overall lives. And then finally, we asked about the professionals' experiences with gender discrimination and sexual harassment. And sadly, more than half of the respondents already encountered unwanted sexual comments by colleagues or superiors. And more than 50% have experienced disadvantages due to their gender. And the comparison of the results between men and women actually indicates that women much more experience gender discrimination and harassment than men did. So to sum up the results, it seems that actually the employers are overall quite understanding and accommodative regarding the employees' work and private lives. However, the PR practitioners work more, time-wise more than they actually want, which affects their work-life balance and their private lives. The majority of professionals are satisfied, as I said, and still feel overall quite well with their lives. And finally, as I said, gender equality is often absent for most of the female public relations professionals, and discrimination among gender has been experienced often and mostly by female practitioners. Yeah, so I tried to make it short, as I said, because of the time, and yeah, I'm very excited about further results actually. Thank you.
Thank you for a lovely presentation. We had a comment in the chat asking participants to ask any questions. We don't have any, but if anybody has any questions, you can ask us now if you wish, and we are very happy to answer. If not, we are also happy to be contacted via email. You can find our public profiles on our university websites and our email addresses. And if you want to join the network, by all means, just let me know. And if you are from a country that's not participating, then you can just join as a country representative. If it's someone that's already participating, I can also make introductions to the existing team. For example, if you are from US or any other country. So just let us know, and thank you for participating today.